Hey Velo fans, here's a review a few people have asked for on Twitter and on Instagram because this bike kind of featured quite a bit last year under the Astana team. So it got some got some looks, the Tour de France especially, which is huge for a bike manufacturer, and it's my Argon 18 Nitrogen Pro. This is my race bike. I also run this on hard and fast workouts and the faster group rides I do. Basically anything that's going to be race-like. This is the bike I'm riding. I train on the Gallium Pro, which I did a review of. That's my newer bike. I actually had this bike for about a year, and they're still running the same frame. They haven't updated this. 2017, 2018 is the same bike for the Argon 18 Nitrogen Pro. So this review still stands. You can buy this bike right now. This is the current model. The only difference, I will say, the only difference is I believe they've changed how this brake, interfaces, the way it's set up. Because these brakes, and I'll get to it, they have an issue. But so let's start just real quick. Let me run through the build. I took delivery on this bike as a complete minus wheels, a brand new bike, just without wheels. So it had a full build, and I did change the crankset because I used a different size crankset than it came with. So quick little run through the build. We'll start at the top. Essentially, this is an Ultegra build. Ultegra levers, Ultegra mechs, but then it comes with a TRP, Aero integrated V-brake on there, which is the brake has been fine. For a race bike in Texas, it's been fine. So Ultegra build. Up here, I have what's called a Barfly spoon mount. There is if you look under here, like a lot of Aero bars, it has some holes drilled out with some threading in there so you can mount various mounts. I actually had to make some mods to this Barfly because I'm running I still run the Garmin 500. I keep waiting to buy a different computer, but the thing never fails on me, so I'm still running it. Thing's bomb-proof. And so I actually had to cut this thing a little shorter and set it back a little more. It was sticking way out here. I mean, I had enough room for, like a mobile phone or something. So we'll talk about the handlebars in a minute. Like, just get on with the build. Running the Roll C55. It's a wheel that is not listed. They are a team sponsor, and they got a few of us beta testing this wheel basically, and they've come out with a newer wheel. I think they have a 45 and a 60 option, but this was one they were testing, and they made maybe a dozen pairs, and some of the team and some of the other teams around Austin are running it. It's like all their wheels I get from them. It's a Sapum CX-Ray spoke. It's 20 by 24 in the back, 55 mil carbon rim, 25.5 mil width, so it's not super wide like some of your new Zips and Envies, but it is on the wide side, so it's fairly up to date. So it gives you a good look of how tire clearance is on this bike. Currently running a Vittoria Corsa. This is the G Plus. It's a 25 millimeter tire. I did a review on these tires. This is the third set I've run, and I am not a huge fan of them for training. It's a good race day tire on a dry day. Grip is fantastic. You can go check out that review. I think I'm just running the Arundel composite bottle cages. They're fine. They work. I'm running a Dura Ace. It's the 9000. It's a 53 or 39 standard, but I'm running a 177.5 length. That's why I had to swap out this crank. I'd be fine with Ultegra. It's a good enough crank. But I need that longer crank because I'm a tall dude. Again, Ultegra build, and then running the Pro Logo Nago Evo saddle, which I really dig. I'm running that on my other bike as well. I am running mechanical. So now to the frame, and I guess I'll start there. You've probably seen this setup. This is the front mech. This is going to the rear mech. You've seen this setup on the giant Propel. Cervelo runs this similar setup, and it's good and bad. One bad thing is on this rear one, this cable runs all the way from the lever, or the housing rather. The housing is a non-stop run all the way down through the down tube, through the chainstay, all the way out. This is the same housing. It doesn't break and the cable doesn't set. So it can rattle around in there. And this will work on other bikes if you're running mechanical with the same setup. I super glued this zip tie right here so it can actually, it's not stuck to the bike, it's stuck to the housing. And then I can pull that whole housing tight and then cinch it with this, these little watermelon rubber things you can get at your bike shop. So it's starting to break. I may need a new one soon. That keeps it from rattling, but when that's not there, that thing rattles like hell. It's annoying, an easy fix. Another kind of weird setup thing is the brakes don't come with a barrel adjuster. So you have to, focus there, you have to put a barrel adjuster in line on not just the front, but also on the back brake. I'm running a barrel adjuster, which isn't too bad. No need for one on the rear. And again, this is my front mech barrel adjuster as is standard. I think the new Dura Ace 9100, they put an adjuster at the mech, so you don't have to do that. We should probably talk about the bars. These are, the hot trend right now are Aero bars, some more integrated than others. These kind of, I think they strike a happy medium in terms of integration. These do, if you buy the Nitrogen Pro, the handlebar setup comes with them, and you get various adapters. So let me show you. It's a typical handlebar. This one is, they listed at 44 centimeters wide, but that's at the flared drop. So at the hoods, I'm closer to like 42 centimeters. So it's a little narrower, but it's fine. It's Aero bike. That's the trend, I guess. But the bar is adjustable. So they only have 3 widths of the bar portion. And then you can buy, or it comes with a few different spacers. So this spacer actually gets swapped out to change the stem length. And then, I'll put that back. And then this piece, this is carbon here, and this is alloy. Because that's where you tighten, you have to take this off, and you tighten down this clamp to put it together. So you can swap this out too to a different angle. So you can change the angle and the length by changing these parts. And I think Argon, if I remember just off the top of my head, says they get like 27 or 28 different bar combinations with those different deals. I'm running effectively 120 mil on a standard, what is that, -7 drop. So it's pretty good. And I've weighed it. This combo is about the same weight as a stem and bar combo. It's some of the fully integrated non-adjustable setups might be a little lighter, but this is an Aero bike. It's not trying to be super light. Moving on down, if you're not familiar with the 3D head tube setup, you may have seen it in the past. In the past, it was a full-on pig because all that stuff in there was threaded into there and threaded into here, and that weighs a lot. But now they've moved it to some composite parts, and it's press fit, so it's way lighter than it used to be. What this does is allows Argon, it's a manufacturing thing, kind of like compact geometry and press fit bottom brackets. They tell us it's a performance thing, but it really allows them to get more bike sizes out of less frames. When you just put the standard 25 mil 3D head tube thing on this bike then becomes effectively a 60 centimeter bike. It's super adjustable. I have the seat post pretty high, and there's a lot of seat post left in here. I'm way clear of the limit. Fork, typical Aero fork, bladed, not super stiff. And that's probably my first issue with this bike, and that's every Aero bike. I'll say this. I've been on the Cervelo's Aero bike. I've spent some time on the Propel, and I've spent some time on the Specialized Aero bike, and I will say this is the stiffest of all those, save for the Propel. The Propel is the stiffest Aero bike I've been on. And as a tall guy on a 60 centimeter bike, that matters, especially in the front end. This bike it does have that Aero noodliness. If you're a smaller person on a smaller frame, it's probably not as noticeable. You know, in windy conditions above 40 miles an hour, bombing straight down a hill, which is fairly common here in Texas, it can be a handful. It can get moving. It can be a little scary. Whereas on my gallium, I can bomb that thing. I've been up to 60. Not a worry in the world, going straight line. This one's a little more, you know, and it may be in part to these wheels too. I've not ridden a different set of wheels on these. But other than that, you know, the front end is a little, you know, it's got that Aero kind of noodliness. Not nearly as noodly as the Cervelo, which is a straight up terrifying bike in this size. And the Specialized was a little more noodlier than this. But it does well. In terms of the down tube and into the back end, I feel like I'm not giving up any stiffness when I'm out of the saddle, sprinting or really putting down power. The bike is comfortable when I'm motoring along. It really likes to get going, and is really smooth when you're hitting it. And I think a big part of that is on both of the Argon Road, you know, the race geometry bikes, the bottom bracket is 5 millimeters lower than a standard bottom bracket. So it's a little lower to the ground and makes it, you know, overall very stable, even though the front end, it has some Aero noodly bits to it. But the rear end down to the bottom bracket and the way the bike tracks is fantastic. It does power out of the saddle just fine. While we're back here, tire clearance is pretty good. I haven't really had any issues with the frame. 25 mil tire on a nearly 26 mil rim. It has more room for width. Tire can't get much taller, but that's part of the Aero deal. You want a tight tolerance there. I will say right here where the brake cable and that little angled piece connects, there's not a lot of room. That's probably the tightest tolerance, but you know, if anything, that kind of clears off anything that might stick to the tire before it gets to the frame. So take it for what it's worth. I will say on a rainy day, you know, long day, if you get stuck out in the rain for hours, this can get a little mucky in here and actually affect the brake return. So that's one problem with these V brakes. Another problem is, it's hard to see here, but the cable sets up down in here. So when you need to change your cable or change the wheel and it's a different width wheel, you know, the barrel adjuster just isn't enough to just simply adjust that width on the fly. This cable terminates like on the other side of right here. Okay, so it locks here, terminates here, and so it's all hidden back there. It's out of the air. I guess that's Aero, but it's a pain in the ass to set up. Really, the only easy way to set it up is to keep the cable fully long so it's hanging down here, get the brake set where you want it, and then cut the cable and put the cable end on there. So basically, when you want to change the wheel to a different width wheel or do some brake setup, you basically have to put a new cable in there because you got to have a full length and you got to cut it when you're done. It's a pain in the butt. They have changed that. So if you buy this bike now, it's more like the Propel, the giant Propel, where this comes out here, and you can actually work on the freaking brakes. So there it is. It's the Nitrogen Pro. Solid bike, good race day bike. I've had this bike about a year, and it was my main bike for quite a few months. So I got about 7,000 miles on this bike per what Strava's showing me. And I've done some long days on it. I've done quite a few, 120 mile plus rides, a lot of climbing, a lot of descending, and it's been great. Like this could be a daily driver. I prefer to not have an Aero race bike as my daily driver. Like I said, the Gallium, if you saw the review of that, it's a much more comfortable bike. It's stiffer, and that. So today, if I'm going to go on a 100 mile plus just ride, I'm going to grab that bike. I'm not going to grab the Nitrogen. But if you're dead set on an Aero bike, the nitrogen could be your daily driver. I daily drove it for, gosh, 6 months, and lots of long rides, hard days, easy days, and it's plenty comfortable. It'll do. Is it the most aero bike in the world? I don't know. I mean, I haven't really seen a test. They used to do, I've seen some tests that were non-biased that compared some aero bikes that was a bit older. I haven't seen a current one, so if you got one, link one up. But it's good. Feels fast. Looks good. I like it.